Bonnie Lipton smiled as she drove her BMW onto the highway in Atlanta. She knew that she would arrive home a couple of hours later than planned, but she would simply chalk it up to the famous Atlanta traffic jams. Nick made the delay in leaving worth the lost time. He is almost 10 years younger than Bonnie and an excellent lover. He is handsome, smart, an excellent conversationalist, and also young enough to quickly recuperate. Bonnie's thoughts then turned to her husband, Ron. He had just turned 44 and lacked Nick's stamina. To make their sex life very enjoyable, he relies on his experience and knowledge of Bonnie's body. After sex with Nick, it was always nice to come home and fall asleep in Ron's arms. She realized she had the best of both worlds, and her smile grew even wider. The further she drove from Atlanta, the less she thought about Nick. He's fun to be around, but Ron and her daughter Casey are the ones she loves. Bonnie wanted to spend time with them now that her libido was fully satisfied. She understood her moods. When she returned home, she would be patient and loving with Ron. He is a wonderful person and an exceptional husband. Casey was athletic and smart. She had many friends in sports and school activities. It's not unusual for 2 or 3 of her girlfriends to hang out at the house on weekends. Bonnie enjoyed being with young women, and they seemed to look up to her as a role model. Bonnie made sure to always be well-dressed. She held an excellent position in an architectural firm and was respected in the community. She and Ron were well known both individually and as a couple. Ron now runs his family's successful construction company. He was never so busy that he didn't go to all of Casey's events at school. Bonnie always enjoyed sitting next to Ron while they watched their daughter play or perform. She knew that more than a few other fathers liked to sneak glances at her, but she also noticed that many of the mothers looked at Ron as if they were vultures and he was prey in the road. Even when Bonnie sat next to him, women often found time to chat and flirt with him. Her handsome husband never seemed to notice, but to Bonnie it was all very noticeable. After several hours on the road, Bonnie pulled into her garage and discovered that her husband's pickup truck was missing. It was unusual and unexpected. Bonnie felt her mood begin to change. The least her husband could do was be home to meet her after a grueling business conference and a long drive home. The house was empty as Bonnie walked into the master bedroom. She couldn't figure out what caused it, but deep within her was a sickening feeling. It was almost lunchtime, and no one was home. The next day is Thursday, which means Ron has work and Casey has school. This meant they had to be home soon, so Bonnie unpacked before taking a shower. While she was thinking about Ron and Casey's unexplained absence, Bonnie remembered that her phone was off. It had been turned off since dinner the previous evening. On the way home, she was lost in thought and didn't think about why no one was calling her. Ron might have been angry because she never called to thank him for the string of pearls. The previous evening, when Nick had stoked her fire, she had completely forgotten about him. Drying her hair with a towel, she turned on the phone. Ron congratulated himself once again on having succeeded in executing a simple but brilliant plan to please and surprise his wife. He had known about her planned conference in Atlanta for months. Bonnie visited them twice a year. As fate would have it, this conference fell on his 20th wedding anniversary. A few weeks earlier, Ron had been approached about building a large vacation home for a family in Atlanta. Once the business portion of the meeting was completed, and Ron felt comfortable with the client, Boyd Drake, he expressed an idea that had only recently formed in his head. Boyd, on the 10th of next month, our anniversary, my wife will be attending a conference in downtown Atlanta. I would like to surprise her and her colleague with a nice dinner at a nice restaurant somewhere near her hotel. To top it off, I bought a pearl necklace that I would like to present to her at the table when she eats dinner. My daughter should organize this for you, Boyd said. She's in college now and knows all the good places in the city. She could see to it that the necklace ends up in your wife's hands. It sounds like you're planning on being lucky when your wife comes home. Why don't you just go to Atlanta with her and deliver it yourself? I've proposed in the past, but Bonnie insists she's too busy to spend time with me. She will have a late dinner and return to the hotel as soon as possible to rest the next day. I have obligations here, and to travel this far only to be ignored seems a little stupid, Ron reasoned. I have another idea, Ron added. Suppose I buy your daughter and her friend dinner if she agrees to sit at the table next to Bonnie and send me a live video on Facebook. I'd love to see Bonnie's surprised look when she opens the necklace box. I'll give you my daughter's number and you can call or text her and arrange everything, Boyd replied. I'm sure she'll be happy to help get this done. Ron had several pizzas delivered to his home for a party he was throwing to celebrate his 20th anniversary. He invited his parents, Bonnie's parents, his brother and sister-in-law, and Bonnie's younger divorced sister. They all expected to see Bonnie in real time when he surprised her with an anniversary gift. Ron's 16-year-old daughter, Casey, was also there with several of her friends. Ron had everything set up so they could watch the video on the big screen TV. Boyd's daughter will sit as close to Bonnie as she can without arousing her suspicions. She will send videos to me via Facebook Live. She paid the waiter to deliver the wrapped gift after Bonnie and her co-worker Sue ordered food. We'll see Bonnie's reaction in real time. This will be the best anniversary ever, considering we are so far apart, Ron explained with a happy smile. I set everything up so that no sound will be transmitted from our side, so feel free to make comments, including what a great idea I had. Who is this guy with his mother? Casey asked as Bonnie came into view, holding hands with a handsome young man. Didn't you say she would be with Sue? I don't know who he is, Ron admitted. He seems to be a pretty close friend. Bonnie's father simply made a harumph sound and frowned at Ron's statement. As the couple took their seats, everyone gathered around Ron's TV could easily hear the conversation. It's very nice that your husband paid for our dinner this evening, the unknown man remarked with a grin. I will do my best to make this anniversary unforgettable, at least for you. It will be even better than your honeymoon. Then you better order a steak, Bonnie replied with a grin. You will need strength. My honeymoon was epic. Is it true? The man asked. Did you have a lover then, or did your husband actually manage to ring the chimes? Ron did a great job, thanks for asking, Bonnie replied. You're the only lover I've had in the last 20 years, not counting Ron, of course. Luckily for me, he started to slow down, the man replied with a grin. The good news is this, you'll have a much better 20th anniversary tonight than most women. I'll take care of it. Maybe we've seen enough, Sister Bonnie suggested nervously. This is not entirely fair. Bonnie has no idea what we're watching or listening to. Why don't you turn it off, Ron? We don't want to miss Bonnie's reaction when she receives her necklace, do we? Asked a determined but very red-faced Ron. Let's watch this train wreck for a little while longer. While the couple was ordering, everyone heard Bonnie call her companion Nick. As the waiter left with the menu, another waiter appeared with a nicely wrapped package. Look! Ron must have delivered me a wedding anniversary gift, Bonnie exclaimed in delight, tearing open the packaging. Isn't she beautiful? Bonnie asked, looking at the string of pearls. Could you fasten it on me? Certainly. Just lean towards me, Nick said, carefully fastening the necklace. Having completed his task, he quickly ran his hands over Bonnie's chest. Your husband is so romantic. You're lucky to have such a handsome man, remarked an elderly woman sitting at the next table. True on both counts, Nick agreed with a smile. She has a romantic husband and a handsome boyfriend. Bonnie glared at Nick, but the older woman simply laughed at his comment. I gave you a pearl necklace last night, which I think looks much better on you than this, Nick joked, leaning down and kissing Bonnie on the lips. That's the difference between a husband and a lover, Bonnie said with a sexy grin. Husbands give us jewelry and lovers give us climaxes. Sorry, but I can't do it anymore, the beautiful red-haired girl who must have been Boyd's daughter whispered as she turned her phone. I should have stopped earlier, but I was so stunned that I went into shock. I'm so sorry it turned out this way. I will definitely erase everything from my phone. I have to go. The TV turned off and everyone sat in stunned silence. One of Casey's friends was the first to speak. It's already late. We'd better leave. See you tomorrow at school. If I even go, Casey replied with tears in her eyes. Dad, is it okay if I go home to my friends? I feel like I need to be with them now. Of course, honey. I understand. We'll talk tomorrow. Drive carefully, girls. Ron had to practically whisper. His throat was so dry. I don't know what to say, Bonnie's mother began. I think we got the wrong impression about what was happening. Bonnie loves you, Ron, and is ready to give her life for Casey. Don't do anything rash. Ron's other guests mostly repeated these words as they quietly discussed the situation. After a few more minutes of calm discussion, Ron made his decision. I have something to think about. Everything. Please find a way out yourself and give me some time to be alone and think about my options. When everyone had left, Ron took out his suitcase and began to pack his things. Bonnie was surprised by the number of messages she'd received and calls she'd missed since she'd turned off her phone the previous evening. As she looked through the messages, her heart sank. Her sister and mother demanded to know who Nick was and why she was so friendly with him. They insisted that she had broken Ron's heart, and Casey was also very upset. Her mother and sister sent her at least a dozen messages each. Bonnie checked her messages to see if she had anything from Ron and found that she didn't. How did her family find out about Nick, and how much do they really know? Where are Ron and Casey? How can she get out of the hole she finds herself in? She needed to find out what exactly Ron knew, and also what he simply suspected. Bonnie realized she needed to talk to family members to understand how bad her situation was. Mother, it's me. I forgot I turned off my phone last night, Bonnie began as calmly as she could. I see you tried to call me. Is there anything wrong? Only if you think the loss of your husband, the alienation and embarrassment of your daughter, the disgrace of your parents, and the behavior of an inveterate slut can be considered wrong. I'm guessing it doesn't bother you too much. Otherwise, you wouldn't be enjoying a damn pearl necklace from your boyfriend, her mother ranted. Ron gave me a string of pearls for our anniversary, Bonnie countered. Why should this upset you? Your father and I have seen enough old adult films to understand what your boyfriend meant when he said you were wearing his pearl necklace, Bonnie's not-so-straightforward mother said. Mother, what makes you think I would do something like that? Why do you think I have a boyfriend? Bonnie asked, as fear tied a knot in her gut. Don't play games with me, I am not stupid, her mother growled. Ron invited us to watch you open his 20th anniversary present at the restaurant. He booked a table for you and your colleague. I think her name was Sue. We have seen this whole vile story. Your husband treats you like a queen and you don't respect him. Husbands give jewelry and lovers give climaxes, I think you said. Did you hear me say that? Asked a shocked Bonnie. How is this possible? Ron asked some friend's daughter to do some sort of live broadcast from her phone. He wanted us to see how happy you would be with his gift. Then we were all going to call and congratulate you on your anniversary, the mother said sadly. Looks like this might be your last anniversary, at least with Ron. Maybe you'll meet your favorite boy again when things calm down. Mother, you know I love Ron. That other guy means nothing to me. It was just something to pass the time. These conferences are getting boring, Bonnie insisted. Oh, this changes everything, her mother said sarcastically. Ron will feel much better knowing that his wife is not a slut and that she was just bored. I assume you left your puzzle at home. Mom, there's no use calling me names. How can I convince Ron that he is the only man I love? You didn't even convince me, so I'd say you have some work to do, the mother replied. Watching you with that man is the worst thing I've ever seen. I highly doubt Ron found it better. After talking with her mother, Bonnie thought about her situation. Her entire family had seen and heard everything she and Nick had discussed at dinner the night before. Remembering her conversation with Nick, Bonnie realized how bad her situation was. She decided to call Casey. Casey, where are you? Bonnie asked when Casey answered her call. I'm with Morgan. She's trying to console me because my family has broken up, Bonnie's daughter replied. We are not breaking up. Please come home and we can talk about this. Where is your father? Bonnie asked, uncertainty. He moved to a cottage on the lake, Casey answered. I don't think he wants to see you. He was so happy last night when he invited everyone to watch you open your gift. You practically tore his heart out when you showed up with your lover instead of Sue. Please come home, Bonnie repeated, trying to think of what she could say to Ron to get his forgiveness. After finishing her conversation with Casey, Bonnie began to look around the house. She noticed that a laptop and several filing cabinets were missing from Ron's office. The closet in his bedroom was completely empty. It was as empty as Hubbard's mother's closet. Bonnie fought back tears as she wandered aimlessly around the house, noting what items were missing. Ron didn't take a single photograph of her presence. This fact seemed especially depressing. Looking for something to take her mind off her crumbling marriage, Bonnie began cooking dinner for Casey. By the time Casey walked through the door, she had managed to prepare a small meal. Casey was sullen and only spoke to Bonnie when asked a direct question. Even then, Casey kept her answers as short as possible. Bonnie admitted to herself that her daughter had good reasons to be angry with her, but she hoped that over time the hostility would, if not completely disappear, at least lessen. The next morning, at dawn, Bonnie walked into their lake house to find Ron slumped uncomfortably and passed out on the small couch. Numerous empty beer cans were strewn across the floor. Ron? Honey, we need to talk. Wake up, please. Ron slowly opened his eyes and groaned. He gradually stood up and, without saying a word, headed to the bathroom. Bonnie decided to make some coffee while she waited for her husband to return. A few minutes later, Ron, fresh from his shower, returned to the kitchen and Bonnie placed a mug in front of him. Bonnie hoped that Ron would initiate the difficult conversation, but that hope soon faded. It was obvious that Ron had no intention of starting a conversation. Ron, I'm sorry this happened. I love pearls. It was a wonderful gift that I will always cherish. It's a pity that I didn't know that you would pass everything on to your family. It would be great if you told me about this. Fuck you, was all Ron could answer, as he was infuriated by Bonnie's attempt to make him out to be the abuser. Bonnie was surprised and hurt by Ron's answer. In all their years of marriage, he had never spoken to her in a disrespectful manner. This was clear evidence of the pain she had caused him. That won't help, Bonnie answered calmly. Tell me, what should I do to fix everything? You are the only man I have ever loved. That hasn't changed. Together we can deal with this. Tell me, what problem exactly do you want to solve? Ron asked calmly. The problem is that I surprised you with an anniversary gift in a nice restaurant where I booked a table for you and a friend. The problem is that my client's daughter agreed to send a video of your reaction in real time. The problem is that I mistakenly decided that you would appreciate this gift. Explain to me what the problem is so that I understand what you are talking about. You know what the problem is? Bonnie insisted. Last night you saw me and Nick in the restaurant. I know that you have dinner with others from time to time. Why do you think that's the problem? Ron asked. You know perfectly well why this is a problem. I told you I was going to dinner with Sue, but I actually went with Nick. You overheard our conversation and found out that we slept together. This is the problem we need to work on. Just to be clear, is the problem that I, along with your entire family, overheard your conversation, or is the problem that you had sex with another man? The problem is my behavior, admitted a blushing Bonnie, realizing that in her current situation, it would not be possible to go on the offensive. You were just trying to be nice to me on our anniversary. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay, we're making progress. Now tell me why you cheated on me behind my back. For how long and with how many men it happened? Ron demanded. Is Casey my biological daughter? Is there any chance that her father was the postman? There's no need to be vulgar or offensive, said an emotionally stunted Bonnie. Of course, Casey is your daughter. Nick has been my only lover since we started dating. Your comment about how many men I've had and Casey's father being a mailman was just cruel. I'm having a hard time understanding your logic, Ron countered. You admit that you are a cheating slut, but you insist that there be a line drawn as to how big of a slut you are. You want me to be polite and understanding, not to mention gullible, when you tell me that you're one man's slut. Are you proud that you haven't cheated on me that often? By the way, How long have you been sleeping with Pretty Nick and how often? You forgot to mention these important facts when you began to refuse the title of City Slut. This was the third conference we've slept together at, Bonnie admitted with tears in her eyes as she finally began to feel the depth of Ron's anger and humiliation. Besides you, he is the only man I've been with since we got married 20 years ago. It will be 2 nights together at each of the 3 conferences, said Ron. Have you ever had sex with him anywhere else? No, Bonnie stated. This happened a total of 6 times and I deeply regret it. I owe you an apology. Are you saying that a young stud like Nick was only capable of 1 time a night with a beauty like you? Asked Ron. He never had you more than once a night? Who cares? Asked a discouraged Bonnie. We probably did it 3 times every night. Now for the big question, Ron announced. Why did you have sex with another man? Was sex with me so thankless, so mundane, so pathetic, that you needed to find a younger, more satisfying lover? Of course not. I was bored, and he pursued me tirelessly. I turned out to be weak. It's not about you or our sex life. It's my vanity, maybe a midlife crisis. He doesn't mean anything to me. I swear. It's clear. You had sex with a man who meant nothing to you, Ron repeated. Did you have sex with Mr. Jenkins? The guy who lives down the street and wears those ridiculous shirts? Asked a very confused Bonnie. Of course not. I barely know him, but I find him repulsive. So he means nothing to you? Ron continued. You just told me that you sleep with men you don't love and who mean nothing to you. Jenkins fits that description. So why don't you have sex with him? I didn't say that I sleep with every man who means nothing to me, Bonnie explained, upset. I slept with Nick because he is handsome, courteous, and successful. He was following me. Do you want to say that you will only cheat on me with handsome, successful men who run after you? Apart from a few of these guys, are you a faithful wife? If you don't love the men you have sex with, doesn't that mean you don't love me? No. I'm telling you that I made a terrible mistake and it will never happen again, Bonnie said with feeling. I love you, but not Nick. How do I know this? Ron asked quietly. At our wedding and several other times over the years, you promised to be faithful to me. You are a beautiful woman. Handsome, successful men will always pursue you. I can't trust you. I can't even give you the great sex you love so much. Don't ever think like that, Ron. I love sex with you. He's special and makes me feel loved, Bonnie replied. How did Nick make you feel that you kept coming back to him? Ron asked softly. Dirty, used, not like a mother or wife. It was the wrongness that got me hooked, not love. What did you do with him and how? Asked the quiet Ron. What does it matter? I love only you, Bonnie protested, clearly embarrassed. I have something to think about. You stand here and tell me that you love me, not him, but you had dirty sex with him. It's hard for me to accept that you are willing to do much more for a person who means nothing to you than for the person you love, Ron reasoned. You haven't told me to please your manhood below the belt for a long time. I wasn't so much against it as I thought you'd lost interest, Bonnie protested, even realizing how pitiful her words sounded. Yes, what kind of married guy would want to get this from his wife, especially when she gives it out like candy? You told me on our honeymoon that I would be the only man you loved, Ron recalls. You and Cute must have had a lot of fun with me. Everything was wrong. He never talked about you. I would never allow that, Bonnie insisted. You seem to have forgotten that I heard several minutes of your conversation. This asshole insulted me several times and you went along with it. Remember how I slow down? That he will give you a better 20th anniversary than most wives. You didn't object, did you? Why are we even wasting time here? Ron suddenly demanded. You found someone new. I accept it. It looks like you should too. Why pretend that you want to stay married? It's obvious that you didn't enjoy being my wife. And let's not even talk about bad sex. You are beautiful, successful, and smart, and I bring nothing to the table. It was only a matter of time before you started looking for something better. Congratulations, you found it. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Ron, we can't let this discussion end this badly. We have to discuss everything and find a way back, Bonnie tearfully begged. You can ask your lawyer to talk to my lawyer. It's over between us, Bonnie. I'm going to divorce you. You left me no choice. That day, Bonnie went to work, but was found in the break room by an angry Sue. Why did Ron ask me about going with you to Atlanta for a conference? You know very well that I stopped riding them after you decided to spend your nights with Romeo from the Chicago office. I don't want you to use me as a cover for your infidelity. Did Ron call you? And what did you tell him? Bonnie asked dejectedly. The truth, I didn't go to the last 2 conferences. I was under the impression that you told him that we were going to share a room and spend time at the conference together, Sue complained. I don't like being used like that. That won't be a problem anymore. Ron learned everything on this trip. I think he's going to divorce me, Bonnie admitted. What other outcome could you expect? Sue demanded. No decent man could accept this level of disrespect. I was too damn stupid and self-centered to even think about Ron finding out about this, Bonnie answered frankly. He moved out. Don't you think you made a choice when you slept with that nasty bastard from Chicago? Sue asked a little softer. I'm sorry you lost Ron, but I warned you that this would happen if you continued like this. It wasn't me who told him, if that's what you're thinking. I know, Sue. I owe you an apology. I abused your friendship. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. I don't deserve a man like Ron.